Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. And it is that kind of weird part of the year, right? So the election came and went. The transition, the nominations are all lining up. Everything's kind of getting ready for the year to flip over. But here we are in the holidays, and we don't know what to do with ourselves. But I'm still going to have some great conversations, and I'm glad to have great friends coming back. My next guest is no exception to that. In fact, I think mine might have been one of the very first radio shows she ever did, at least in person. She came down and sat with us as we talked about politics in her first book many, many years ago, but she has served as the spokesperson for the GOP official capacity over the course of the campaign. Model, figure skater, writer, comedian, cook, philanthropist, all these things and more. Elizabeth Pipko, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for a very good intro. Wow.
Well, you've done a lot of things in a short amount of time, and it's very impressive. We haven't talked since before the election on this level. I mean, we text a lot, but what was your sense of relief or joy or exhaustion around 2:30 in the morning, the morning after November 5th?
I think those are probably the best terms to use. Quite a bit of relief.
All of the above?
Yeah, all the above. A lot of exhaustion. I basically collapsed that night. By night, I mean 5:30 in the morning when I got back. And when I woke up, which was 2 hours later to be back in the office, I had no voice whatsoever. So I'm convinced my body was just kind of hanging on to election day. I'd been in at least one, if not multiple, different swing states every day for the last couple of weeks leading up to that point. Obviously a lot of media as well. I think one day I did like 17 hits. So the voice could have maybe fluctuated because of that, or I was probably, sick as a dog and my body knew that nothing mattered until November 5th and I had to hold on. So
yeah,
held on. We actually knew, I think around 10 p.m. that night, we kind of knew that we had won. The joy didn't really kick in till I ended up crying on national TV. I think I was the first person to go on TV after his victory speech that night. And of course, I cried my eyes out because it was 8 years, right? I've given this man, my entire family has given this man and this fight and this movement 8 years. So it was very emotional, but in the best way possible. And I think the joy is still going to set in. I remember in 2016, it didn't hit me what had happened and that we had won the election until many months later. So I'm sure it's all still going to hit.
Well, nobody really knew in 2016, particularly in the aftermath of the immediate, because, Hillary was shocked she had lost and the whole world was kind of, what is going to happen? This kind of outsider, stranger, Donald Trump, what's he going to do? Is the world going to end? And this election was completely different. It was, what did Trump do? What did Biden do? Who do we like better? And the overwhelming answer to that question came quite clearly and quite early on election night, as a lot of people had projected, oh, we're not going to know for days. I was asked, I think like 2 or 3 days before the election, and somebody asked me specifically, will we know by midnight? And I said, not East Coast, but we'll probably know by the time the West Coast clicks around midnight. And if I wasn't like spot on at 2:45 or whatever it was when the network started calling it, as soon as he picked up Wisconsin, that was the end. But the interesting thing about this, Elizabeth, is that he really has a mandate to be doing what we've been watching him do with the nominations, with the policy work he's doing in advance. I just said in my column this week, I think he's going to have a whole host of executive actions ready to sign. Like the minute his hand comes off the Bible, sworn in, boom, give me a pen. I got work to do. And that was the way he was in term one. He doesn't waste a second.
No, he doesn't. And obviously this is, like you said, it's different. It was almost two incumbents going up against each other, right? Because we knew what life was like under Donald Trump and we knew what it was like under Joe Biden and obviously Kamala Harris. So I don't even think he needs to wait a second because, like you said, the American people very loudly let the world know what they wanted, who they supported, and that they are going to be very happy with most, if not all of the decisions that President Trump makes in the next 4 years. I think we talked about it quite a bit, you and I obviously as well, but many people talked about it for the months leading up to the election. And I kept saying the excitement I was seeing was overwhelming. And it reminded me of 2016. You are one of very few people, by the way, you get all the credit in the world for saying this is what was going to happen, that he was going to take all these swing states and he was going to win with the way that he did, right? With the magnitude that he did that night. I think people still can't believe it. But that's kind of what I saw coming too. And I think it's the best possible way, obviously, to win, because now people know on both sides of the aisle, they know what the American people want. They know what they're looking for. And they know just how unhappy and disappointed they've been with the policies of the last 4 years. And I think with the Democrats in general since 2016. So I was very happy with it. And I'm curious what that means, honestly, for both parties moving forward when the American people give you such a decisive victory, right? I'm curious what that means and how both parties want to adjust after the days of Donald Trump are over.
Well, the interesting thing about that is that the media has yet to really acknowledge that it was an overwhelming victory. They're even trying to make the argument now that it wasn't a blowout. And I'm like, because they're going to say technically he falls under 50% of the vote when you count all the third party, like little crumbs that come in. And I couldn't care less. He's going to have beaten her by millions. And more importantly, by 312 votes in the Electoral College, and as you said, all 7 swing states. There wasn't any. If the swing states are the barometer of where like the center of the country is at, there's no question as to how they came down. But I am curious, Elizabeth. You did a lot of media down the stretch, and this was kind of your first like full-time gig doing media, which was, and I thought you did a very impressive job. So kudos to you, by the way. But all this talk about CNN and MSNBC cleaning house, rethinking their strategies, saying we have to do something completely different, maybe even being sold. I mean, there's a joke that Elon Musk might buy MSNBC and call it MXNBC. It would be kind of interesting if that occurred. But do you think that there is a kind of reckoning, a kind of come to Jesus, if you will, that the mainstream networks, who largely just lied to the American people for 4 years, every night after night, do you think that there's some soul searching going on?
I do. Unfortunately, I think majority of the soul searching comes from losing revenue, right? Like, let's be honest, it's not because they genuinely want to connect with the American people. It's because without that connection, they lose money and they lose viewers. So unfortunately, we have to be a little honest about that. But the fact is they lost in a very big way. They are now caught red-handed, not only lying to the American people for many years, but lying to the entire world about what the American people stood for and believed, because none of them predicted this was going to happen. None of them thought it was humanly possible that Donald Trump won the popular vote. Now trying to clean up their answers and saying you didn't win by too much is not helpful. The entire world knows where the American people stand, and they know what happened, right, on November 5th. Everybody knows what happened, and everyone knows when you win all swing states in that fashion, the American people have spoken very clearly, and that's the man that they wanted for the job. So I think it's sad that they're looking maybe a little introspectively for the wrong reasons, but the fact is we do need more honesty in our media, and we need more conversations, right? We don't need someone on the left tuning into MSNBC and getting a very different reality check than they do if they tune into a different network. We need more people, more disagreements on the same network sitting together so the American people can see the difference, and maybe we can come together on very basic issues and not try to divide the American people before.
What an awesome thought.
Elections.
Like having actual conversation. You know, people used to do that in person, actually. Sometimes they'd get together and do that as friends. She's Elizabeth Pipko. I'm Calvin McCullough. We're coming right back from New York. Stay here.
Show.